welcome today. Guys, we are seeing still quite a bit of errors and a little bit of misunderstanding on the forms. And so we want to spend some time to make sure that you all are in line with what is required. We have our own specific Best Choice Realty forms. And so I want to just really start out by going over those. But before we get started, just want to thank our guests for being here today. We have John Kim, who is going to be translating in Korean. We have Xiao La, who is going to share how she gets her buyer's representation agreement signed and the importance of it. We also have Yan Lee here from Chicago Title. We have our lovely broker owner, Rochelle Wilhite, who's going to be having some conversations with me so that you all understand. And then we also, last but not least, want to thank Lisa Schultz for being here and providing her insight and things that she's seeing out there with the changes. So I think I just want to say, continue to jump in. It's okay to, not necessarily okay to make mistakes, but jump in, keep doing what you're doing. We don't want to pause and just stop because we don't know, but definitely pay attention. Anything that, if you have any questions, we're going to ask that you put them in the chat and just reserve to the end because ideally most of them will get answered as we go through. Okay. Is there anything that I've left off? And if everybody could mute your lines, if you can mute yourself, that would be awesome. Aside from the speakers today, this first 30 minutes, we'll start out. Rochelle and I are going to go over the buyer broker service agreement. Okay, and then let me, 1 second, guys, let me get this here. Got a few things up on my screen and we will get started. Numbers. You all do know that as of right now, our BCR 41A and our 1A are in process to be fillable again. But at this point, you're going to find them on our Best Choice Realty downloads section. And let me share my screen. All right. Are we here? Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're working on today is the BCR 41A. So this is the new agreement. Again, like I said, this is not yet fillable in Transaction Desk, but it is in your document. So if you use the wizard and you're writing up a contract, you go to it won't be in the forms, it's going to be in the downloads. You can upload it and set it up in AuthentiSign to be signed. Okay, so the changes on our form, really, there's nothing here. Agency, buyer broker, right? Buyer brokerage firm appoints.
Are you able to just mock it up? Let's just mock it up for everybody so they can see how. We're still getting people having questions about what do I do? Where do I fill in? So let's pretend I'm I'm Candace's buyer.
Right. And then we have
the date.
Oh goodness, who is going to
be? That date should be before you commence real estate services. Now, other brokerages are part of the settlement. Best Choice Realty is not part of the settlement. And so you can actually, that date can be when you built loyalty and trust with your client. So that's kind of, I think a lot of people are asking, well, do I have to have this signed before I go show a house? That is the settlement. The law says before you commence real estate services. That date needs to be certainly before you write a contract.
Yes. So on before you write your contract. And then this is between whoever your buyer is, Mr., Mrs. Buyer, buyer one, buyer two, your buyer, your agency. That is the buyer broker. that is you if you are writing the offer. That would be Rochelle Wilhite as the buyer broker. We have here, and this is different from the standard one, we have added a co-buyer broker. And this is in the case, maybe you have a transaction coordinator, maybe you have another agent that's helping you with showings, what have you. This would be the place to put your co-buyer broker, okay? And okay, if you have a co-buyer broker, it's not required, but that option is available for you. Here's another section that we are seeing some issues. The term, in consideration of the services to be rendered by the buyer brokerage and the buyer brokerage firm and the buyer broker, the buyer grants the buyer brokerage firm from the date hereof until midnight, 60 days from the date hereof, or whichever date. So this needs to be not today's date. Today's date is going to null and void that today. So not today's date, guys. This needs to be 60 days minimum, right? Or greater if you find yourself working with somebody longer. Okay.
We have a lot of people. Candace, I don't mean to jump in, but I think this would be important
yes,
for the recording.
please.
For the recording, I need John Kim to explain the term because we have a lot of Korean speaking brokers that are actually putting today's date in that section. John, are you able to just explain in Korean that is, if not filled out, it's fine if it's not filled out because it says it's 60 days and the box is exclusive. So if they leave it blank, that actually is the only place in the entire document that can be blank and still be effective. But we have Korean brokers specifically that are not understanding and they're putting today's date in that term. Can you just quickly explain that 1C in Korean?
Yeah, I'll do that. It might sound weird, so
That's
hang
okay.
in there.
Go ahead.
네, 여기 바이어 브로커리지 서비스 그 문서에 1번에 C term 칸에 지금 빈 공간이 있는데요. 거기를 빈 공간으로 놔두면은 60일로 자동으로 기정이 되는 거고 날짜를 적으려면은 정확한 그 계약이 끝나는 날짜를 적어야 됩니다. 오늘 날짜가 아니고요. 그래서 비워두셔도 되는 공간이고요. 아니면은 정확히 언제 끝나는지 날짜를 적어주시고 그 바로 다음에 나오는 exclusive right이나 non-exclusive right 둘 중에 하나를 체크를 해주는데 또 그거 역시 체크를 안 하면은 그냥 non-exclusive로 되는 겁니다. Done.
Right. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That will hopefully solve a lot of the problems we're seeing. But Candace, continue. That's what.
Right. So then we have also exclusive right or non-exclusive. Nothing has changed there. There are cases that we have agents that say, you know what, my client does not want to sign this. Okay, Mr. Client, let's go non-exclusive then. And maybe you want to put in a date of 30 days from today. Remember, if you put today's date, that kind of null and voids. Leave it blank, which will default to the 60 days. Put in your 30 days, put in 6 months, whatever it be. But if you're finding that they're struggling, you know what? Non-exclusive may be the way to go. Okay. Most of us want to work exclusively with our buyers as we are providing services to them and want to be in agreement on both sides. Okay. Services. There's really no change here, but what you might have found before, go ahead.
The shall law says to everyone, and this is important, non-exclusive means that they could work with John Kim, they could sign an agency agreement, this buyer service agreement with John Kim, and then shall law could work with that same client. So you could have multiple agents if it's non-exclusive that have multiple buyer agency agreements signed. So you need something signed in order for you to get paid compensation. That's the reason you have to get this agreed upon. So either exclusive or non-exclusive, if you do find a house that that your buyer likes, and again, your non-exclusive buyer likes, you can get compensated. If you don't have any agreement, you cannot get compensation. I have to send the money back to the state of Washington, back to the seller. I cannot receive compensation unless there's an exclusive or a non-exclusive agreement in place. That is super, super important. Thank you for saying that in the chat, Xiao. But for the recording, we have a lot of brokers that will need to listen to the recording. We want to make sure that they understand that you will not be able to get paid unless you have an agreement, either exclusive or non-exclusive in place. Can you explain that, Xiao, real quick in Chinese?
这个他们在说这个C 这个 term 这个地方什么 exclusive 和 non-exclusive 意思，就说第一个是日期，日期你不能写今天的日期，上面已经有，如果你不填这个日期的话，就是60天。如果你不填这个表格的话呢，就说如果卖家就是给钱给你，我们都不能收那个Rochelle 都要把钱退给州政府，所以无论如何都要这个表格。表格你可以选一个 exclusive， 也可以选一个 non-exclusive。non-exclusive 就是个买家他愿意跟不同的那个经纪人合作，他可以跟你合作，也可以跟其他人合作。其实很多中国人经常是这样说，哎，谁帮你手上有房子吗？谁帮我找到房子，我就跟谁买。但是说如果你推荐了房子，你带他看了那个房子，他就一定要这个房子就是你的了，其他经纪人带那是其他经纪人事情，其他的房子与你无关。你没有这个表格的话，就是你写了合约，做了所有的事情，你都没办法得到钱都拿不到钱，所以无论如何都要写个表格，不管是exclusive 还是 non-exclusive。
Awesome, thank you. I don't speak any language, so
you.
just so you know, I haven't picked any of that up, but I appreciate your translation, Xiao. I'll continue, Candace. Let's go ahead and go into services.
Yes, services, really nothing has changed. There used to be a line item here where you could fill in maybe other services that you were going to do, but for sake of being able to get as much as we can on as few pages as possible, we remove that. You will also notice here, we have line item numbers now. This was not here previously. So line number 1, 2, 3, to help with explanation or confirming where items might be on the page.
And the other reason we
number
removed
3,
services, before you move to
Go ahead.
services, yeah, there were a lot of creative things as far as rebates and things like that I was seeing in the documents. And that was another reason. And attorneys have advised that when we're talking about rebates, they have to be properly disclosed now. And so we saw way too much creativity in law, you guys practicing law, in something that you shouldn't be doing. And so we just took that away. So there isn't any issues with you practicing law without a law license. So we'll get to the compensation section in a minute, but that was another area where I think the only thing that I liked that we removed was when you're offering home warranties, you're offering some different services. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That would need to be on a separate addendum or on a separate page. You don't have the right to modify this document on that section. Okay, continue services. After services, Candace.
All right. Okay, area. That is the area the broker shall represent the buyer for the first and second properties toured by the buyer broker together. For the third and all successive tours, the buyer broker shall search for real property within the geographical area of. This may be a specific address. It can be a specific county, and as well as it can stay blank, and that includes Washington State if not filled in. All of Washington State.
The addition we added
Anything that you want to add there?
Yeah, the addition that we added in number 3 on the area was pretty progressive, because we know some of our competitors are doing buyer agency agreements where they're basically having the buyer sign for just a property. And what that creates is a lot of electronic signatures, a lot of confusion, where they have to re-sign a buyer agency agreement. And so the attorney and I talked about that and said, why don't we do the first and second properties basically built in, where it's baked in, and then it will revert to a Washington state. So that's kind of the way we set it up. It makes a lot of sense, and there's less paperwork there having to go between the buyer and the buyer's agent on that. So I think where you run into problems is when a buyer is looking in a very broad area, and they say, like, John, we want to look in Bothell, and then they also want to look in Tacoma. So in that case, you may want to partner with an agent. You know, maybe you want to have Candace as your Tacoma, right, agent, put her in as a co, not knowing if you might go to Tacoma, but then we retain the client across the entire Puget Sound region, rather than only having the client for one specific property or specific area. We can go all the way across the state of Washington with the amount of Best Choice Realty agents we have currently right now. So I think that area leaves a lot of opportunity for all of you to take advantage of the size of brokerage that we've created at Best Choice, and essentially put somebody in a co-position even after you've got this already signed, and not have to adjust that area. That area is pretty important to make sure if it's not filled in, it's Washington State, the entire state of Washington. All right, thanks, Candace. Number 4.
Right. Okay, number 4, limited dual agency. Buyer broker as a limited dual agent, buyer brokerage firm, limited dual agency, and buyer brokerage firm may represent other buyers and competing buyers.
So 1A, B, and C, when would we have them sign that? I have a lot of people asking questions. So if I don't have the buyer's initial on 4A, Candace, what does that mean?
That means that you cannot act as a limited dual agent. So if you are, you have a listing and you're representing the seller, and potentially a buyer comes in, wants to write up an offer and wants you to represent them, you cannot act as a limited dual agent.
So that happens rarely, but it does happen. And we've had some incidents where one of our brokers lost a listing because essentially we were working on buyer side, but that initial was not there on term 4. That's already happened.
Oops.
We've lost a listing on that, or potentially lost a listing. I'm still trying to keep it together, but you've got to make sure that the seller has initialed that section if they're okay with Candace representing. So if the listing agent is representing a buyer, we have to have an initial on that section in order for that to take place. Otherwise, you represent the buyer only. You can't represent both parties. And that's a new change that happened, and it needs to be addressed. And so if you're not going to have them initial, then you only represent that client as a buyer agent. Okay, and then you don't need to really.
I like that this is here because, right, and I like that this is here in the listing agreement, because it's there to make you have that conversation. Rochelle, I've had some agents come to me and say, you know what, we didn't go over this, they didn't sign that, can we make changes to it? And absolutely you can, but remember that this is here for you as a guide to have those speaking points and discuss with your seller if you're going to act as a limited dual agent or not.
If you're only going to be exclusive and they're going to want to be exclusive with you, I would say we have probably less people initialing that section, and that's okay. I don't have a problem at our firm. You can be a dual agent and not have any issues. There are brokerages that it's not allowed because of their insurance and because of how they've structured and how they want to run their business. We do dual agency and we teach dual agency correctly. So I don't have a problem. We don't have any insurance claims that are ongoing. So I'm okay with it, but you better make sure you have had a conversation. If you have them initial, that they understand and they've received the pamphlet and all of that, in order for you to act as a dual agent under Best Choice Realty's rules and regulations. Okay, let's go to number 5, the beautiful compensation section.
Okay. This is a big one. This is one I get a lot of questions on because this has changed. So, and ideally this has changed, and I think the idea is that we prevent steering from properties that are not offering a compensation. So with our previous agreements, I was able to say, you know what, buyer, I know that you don't have the funds to compensate me for a listing that the seller is not offering any compensation. So we can agree that we won't tour those homes. We won't see those homes, right? I won't bring them to your attention. This is a change, guys. So seller compensation offer. Seller may, but is not required to offer compensation to buyer brokerage firm for representing buyer in the acquisition of seller's real property. Seller's offer. Seller's offer is disclosed in the listing, shall be stated in the purchase and sell agreement, and may be accepted by buyer on behalf of buyer brokerage firm if the purchase and sell in the purchase and sell agreement. Buyer brokerage shall bring listings to the attention of buyer, regardless of seller's offer.
She's reading term
compensation.
5, line 62. That, if you're following along, that term 5 in essence is the bulk of the conversation that we're having. Consumers are not understanding how this is being done, but that's why we have to do this, is because of the antitrust issues that were happening in lawsuits that were happening across the nation. And so in our state, this is how it's done. So I would kind of circle number 5 if you're looking at the document, or highlight it. Candace just read the whole thing. That's the crux of the matter before we get into the compensation discussion. So the seller is they may or they may not be offering compensation. We don't know. And yet we're asked as a buyer's agent to establish our worth. I'll just say it like it is.
Right.
We're establishing our worth right before we actually start doing all of the services that we state forth in the first page. So we need to make sure that we are very, very clear on number 5. That we are going to show to the buyer. Yeah, regardless of if the seller offers nothing, we're still going to bring that listing to their attention. If they say on the if we call the listing agent says, go ahead and write me an offer and include any compensation offering at that point in time, we're going to need to show the property and bring it to the attention of that buyer. I think a lot of you are getting too scared and too timid to have those conversations when this is what we've been doing. I think, if I remember right, National Association of Realtors is a long-standing organization that's been around a very, very long time. And there's always been discussions between brokerage firms about compensation. That's something that has gone on for a long, long time. So for the most part, when I talk to other brokers or even consumers in regards to when you list your house, are you going to offer the buyer a buyer compensation? Most consumers will. And I think we're kind of like getting in our own heads, Candace, like as far as maybe they're not going to offer. I'm timid. I'm not confident with this, or I'm not well versed in what's going on across the nation of the lawsuits. You don't need to be. In fact, it's probably better that you're not. And you focus on building a relationship with the buyer and with the seller and with the listing agent and with your colleagues in like we're doing today, and just kind of getting at the dialogue more than anything. That will overcome, I think, the uncertainty that's in the marketplace right now. Do you agree,
Yes,
Candace?
yes.
I don't know if I'm
Jump into it. Yeah, jump into it with you know, you don't want to come off as somebody. We had a discussion recently and it was like, you know, I went out to buy a car, right? And then as I'm buying this car, you know, now that I'm at the point of negotiating, all of a sudden the salesman is acting really strange and really awkward about the compensation, you know, about, well, maybe his compensation, because I'm trying to make sure I'm getting the best deal for the car that I'm purchasing. So jump into it, stay positive about it, and be confident. again, I've said this a lot of times, sometimes we do have to fake it till we make it. But your confidence is going to show up big time. So just be confident with it. Most are willing to offer a compensation. Most are. So don't be scared around it and act weird
And we're filling
around it,
we're filling
right?
this in, Candace. I
'Cause
mean,
they
a lot
feel
of
that.
people
Yeah.
a lot of people have asked me, are we filling this in? Yeah, we're still filling this in, right? Before we meet with the client. That has not changed.
Yes.
So, go ahead and fill in page 1, but then when it gets to page 2, this is where you want to have a dialogue. This is where you want to have a conversation with your buyer about what's going on. And I would highlight number 5 as what we're dealing with here. We're going to be entering into a scene where there's a lot of challenge. Some sellers offer compensation, some do not. I'm going to bring all the properties to your attention that meet your needs based on the criteria we have established. And in order for me to be compensated, I will need your okay on this agreement to move forward. And I will go to bat for you. I will negotiate for you. That's what I do as a true professional. And so there are some options here on term 6 of how I can be compensated. And I love, several months, in fact, I think it was last year, Candace, one of our brokers, I can't remember, there's a few of them that said, you know what, I love how you start with the retainer fee and in our document. And we have a different document that the rest of the Northwest MLS or the rest of Washington. We're using our own document, but we like that we start with a retainer fee because that is how attorneys get paid. They get paid on a retainer, and we can be paid that way as well. So you could fill in potentially if you're working with the client and they only want to do a retainer fee to go out and show 50 homes or whatever they have in their mind to do. We could fill in an amount there, but we start with the retainer, we work our way down the consultation fee, and that's 0 per hour per showing. It kind of sets the stage that there's a lot of work I'm going to be doing for you. And then in D, it says 3% if not filled in. That allows me to negotiate on your behalf to see if I can get the seller to pay my fee. But we need to establish that here in this document. And then how do you explain it, Candace? I think you've
Just exactly how you say it. That's exactly how I say it. This at 3%, regardless of what the seller's paying, this does allow me to negotiate to be paid by the seller. In every circumstance that we are writing an offer, and hopefully we're not writing a ton of them, we're going to know what the seller is compensating or not. And if it's less than, because this is 3%, it does allow me to negotiate that with the seller.
Okay, so I'm putting in 3%, and I just got done. I'm in the process of I have a pending transaction right now, Candace, and my client is writing me out a check for the 3% because it's an off-market transaction. We brought it to their attention, and they're not offering compensation. They don't want to list their home. Essentially, it's a for sale by owner. And there's a lot of those deals out there, and those conversations are being had, but they gladly will pay me for the work that I've done to show them homes. We were under contract in twice before, one off market, another on the market. And then this third one, that we're in contract with, it's off market. And so I'm compensated because of the agreement that you have right here. And this is somebody who's been doing commercial. So while we're talking about commercial, yes, commercial agents are still required to get a buyer service agreement in place. I know there's a question about that. If you're selling real property, a buyer service agreement needs to be in place. You cannot be representing a commercial or a residential client buying real property without a buyer service agreement and then get compensation. That has changed. That law changed January 1st, 2024. And I've said this, I even have a tech thing, and I still am getting the same questions. Like, I don't have to have one. Yes, you do. You need a buyer. The only time you wouldn't need one is if you're selling a business. That's not real property. So that's a little bit different. But as far as real property goes, yes, you must have a buyer service agreement in place. Okay. So
Now,
go ahead and
the other thing I want to bring up while we're here because we're seeing a lot of it. I'm seeing a lot of agents that are putting in, and they have specifically 2.5% here, or they have 2%. I actually have one that she puts 1.5%. What that means, you guys, in the case that the seller is offering more, if you have 1.5 and the seller is offering 2.5, that difference of 1% is going to your buyer potentially. Okay, so capture the 3%. Let go with the default, put the 3% in there and call it a day. You just, I mean, because we don't know, right? And
yeah, so
go ahead.
3% is, don't, in the past document that we had built it so that you could get the difference. I think that's why people are still making that mistake, Candace. They're putting in the 1, or they're putting in the minimum, right, that they want to get paid, because they
Right.
knew that there was a
Yep.
paragraph after that we had written in where they could get the difference. And that is no longer the case. We're no
Exactly.
longer, by law, because of the settlement, able to collect the difference. We are only able to collect what is here and what's been agreed upon by the buyer. And as Candace is correct, you cannot collect the difference. It would go into the form of a rebate to your client if the seller was offering more, or you would have to amend the buyer agency agreement for you to get paid. So both those cases have worked in the last week. And the buyer's like, oh, Candace, I want you to get paid the 2.5 because the seller's offering that. We would have to have an amendment made to the agreement in order for Candace to get paid anything more than what she's put here on this contract.
Correct. Wonderful. Yes. So, let's see here. And then also here, again, here's a section, limited dual agent. This would need to be completed if for any reason you may be a limited dual agent. I would say if you're a listing agent that does dual agency, you want to go ahead and have this conversation and have this line E completed as well. Okay. Limited dual agent. If you are a listing agent, you've got a lot of listings, you've got buyers that might be interested in your listings and you're open to that, you very well may want to go ahead and have this also completed here. Okay. Unrepresented seller. If the seller is not represented by a licensed real estate firm, then the buyer's fee shall be. Okay, so if there is no representation, this would be equal to section 6D, right? So you're 3% here. If you're like Rochelle, for instance, right now has a is under contract, and the seller, is not represented off market.
So on my document,
Okay.
333 all the way down the line, I zeroed out the consultation fee, I zeroed out the retainer, and I zeroed out the per hour per property. But there are instances where you may want to do something different on the retainer fee or the consultation fee. And that's perfectly fine with us and the firm. And we're going to show you how we do that and how you are able to collect a retainer fee or a consultation fee or a per hour or per property amount.
Or per hour fee.
Yeah, we are seeing those.
So we have now, and so just to kind of, let's jump into this right now as well. We now have an invoice request form. So this link is bestchoicerealtyhomes.com/invoice. Okay. Now this is if you are doing a retainer, consultation, or per hour fee. And it's very self-explanatory. You complete your name, you have your email, the client name.
The client name would be your client that's
You
going to
have
be
your
sent the invoice.
client email address would go there, your client's phone number, their address, and then the invoice type. So reimbursement is here in the case of listings, but compensation is what we're talking about today on the buyer brokerage service agreement. The compensation method, is it a retainer? Is it a consultation? Is it per hour or a percentage of the purchase price, flat fee?
let's go with the, I
We've
have
got a
one I gotta do today. Let's do
Yep.
consultation. Let's do per hour per property, Candace. Let's do an instance
You
of
want
that.
to do per hour per property?
Yeah, because
Okay.
I've got one right now. One of our brokers is wanting to compete. They're on WeChat, I think, right now. And they're trying to be creative and build a relationship. So they've got the buyer service agreement set up, so it's non-exclusive. And the client wouldn't sign an exclusive. And then they need to get an invoice prepared. And we're like, how do we communicate with the firm? Obviously, that's not an escrow thing. Escrow doesn't handle that. We handle that in our firm. So what this agent needs to do today is go to bestchoicerealtyhomes.com/invoice, and then this will come up, and she'll need to indicate what to, where the invoice is going to be sent for the per hour per property. She's going to go show some properties all weekend long. And so she's going to want, she's got 5 properties. She's doing $50 a property. So 50 times 5, Candace, what would that be? A couple $100? $250. So she's going to,
$250.
how much to invoice? So you have to calculate that out. So $250 right there. And then if the notes for accounting, if we need to bill certain, have it payable in a certain time, our agreement says that we will not go and show properties unless the invoice is paid. So you are not obligated to show properties unless the invoice is paid if you check that option. So you don't need to put anything there. And then the attachments, if you needed to include attachment, or you had an email or something like, or a flyer maybe that you do that you wanted to include with the invoice, you're welcome to attach it, but it's not required. And then once you click submit, it's not required to do an attachment, but if you had a flyer, you had something that you were doing that you wanted to include with the invoice, we would attach that there. And then our accounting team, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, will be sending invoices to your clients that they can be paid through QuickBooks. So it's just a matter of putting their credit card in, paying the invoice, and then you will get the percentage of that as well. Okay, you click submit, and then everything gets taken from there.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to log them up with anything right now, but hopefully this was clear, very self-explanatory. If you need help, we're here to support. Myself and accounting can help as well. Okay, so back to so the seller compensation offer. This this line item here, basically it's protecting us, but I'm going to read it. In the event there is either no seller's offer in the listing, seller has not signed a listing agreement, the buyer authorizes the buyer broker to include in any offer of acquisition of property a requirement that the seller pay the buyer's fee. In the event the seller's offer is less than the buyer's fee, the buyer authorizes buyer broker to include in any offer of acquisition of real property a requirement that the seller offer additional compensation to buyer brokerage firm such that total compensation from the seller to the buyer brokerage firm shall equal to the buyer's fee. So again, you guys, that's stating this allows me to negotiate my compensation if they're not offering what we have here, the 3%. So if they're offering 2%, it allows me to negotiate.
The other thing
In
to
the
point
event
out,
the seller's offers, go ahead.
no, that's okay. So keep going. I think the important part that was changed that you guys need to read is the part that Candace is going to read right now. It's line 90. Yep.
Yes. In the event the seller's offer is equal to or greater than the buyer's fee, no compensation is due to buyer brokerage firm from buyer. In the event the seller's offer exceeds the buyer's fee, the buyer may request, subject to lender's approval, that the difference be credited to the buyer's obligations at closing. For any amount not approved by the lender, buyer may request that it be applied to the purchase price. Should a seller fail to close through no fault of the buyer, fees payable in those sections shall be waived. Should buyer default, the buyer's fee shall be due and payable to the buyer brokerage firm immediately by the buyer Buyer acknowledges that there are no standard compensation rates and the compensation in this agreement is fully negotiable and not set by law. Okay, so that is the place where, again, it's clear, it's put out there. If the amount that is, if you have on your agreement 2%, seller's offering 3, you don't get that difference. It goes to the buyer and it can be applied to the purchase price or the buyer's obligation, so closing costs.
So let's run through a scenario, Candace. I'm sorry to jump around a little bit, but I think
Gotta actually, and let's
pull up the
definitely
purchase and
run
sale.
through it because I think I want to pull up the purchase and sale.
Yeah, you were thinking the same thing
Yeah.
I was thinking. Because this is where a lot of you are getting confused. Is like, okay, we got the
Sorry,
buyer
guys, I didn't
agency
know.
agreement. Now let's fill in the purchase and sale. And the purchase and sale agreement was changed to include all areas, either they're part of the settlement or not part of the settlement, across the entire state of Washington. And so that purchase and sale agreement is where I think a lot of you are messing things up. So I was in a, well, she's pulling
Yes.
up. I'll tell you a story. So I was in a meeting with some designated brokers, and we had a very interesting conversation because a lot of people are like Best Choice Realty agents. You know, there's some really good brokers out there that are wanting to help everybody out, right? So it's like Candace is maybe at a different company. I'm at, you know, Best Choice. And we had this really interesting conversation about what happens as a designated broker if we represent the seller and we see a buyer's agent that does not fill in the purchase and sale agreement correct. We want to go to that buyer's agent and say, hey, you screwed up the form. Let me help you fix it. But if we did that, we would not be representing our seller appropriately. So it's really sad, but we already are seeing people not filling out the purchase and sale agreement correctly, and there's nothing I can do. Once you're mutually accepted, the parties are agreeing to pay, which Candace is going to show you, what is in this section. Nothing more, nothing less, and there's nothing I can do to fix that for you. So we've had a couple sad stories, Candace. I mean, there's been one
I
agent
know.
that,
I have some
filled
agents
in.
not very happy with me when they're asking, you know, it's like, Candace, did I fill this out right? No, you didn't. And I'm sorry, but you didn't. And I mean, I didn't make the forms, guys. We didn't make them, but we're here to help you complete them properly so you get paid.
So if you do it wrong, we already had somebody do it wrong. And what I mean by doing it wrong is number 17, they did not put in something in on B. They left that blank.
Mm-hmm.
And if you leave 17B blank, you get paid 0. And you might want to have to work with your client on how you get paid, because you can certainly do an invoice. You can still, you know, work out an agreement where they pay you with the buyer service agreement, but escrow cannot pay you a dime if 17B is not filled out. So in the instance that we have Canada pull up a listing, that's fine.
Let's see here. Go pull up a listing. Okay.
Let's just pull up one just so we can see.
And what happens is, you guys, you know, in some cases you might not have it default to what's there at all. Nothing might not show up. It might be 0 in that case. But if you're using the wizard properly and you're pulling up the listing and entering in through transaction desk, it should default there for you. So let me see here.
Correct. Maricon said if it's off market, 17A would be blank. That is correct. If you are working in Spokane, if you're working in Squim, if you're working down in Vancouver, in areas of the MLSs that are part of the settlement, then that's correct. Nothing would be filled in 17A. But you still would need to, if you're going to request an offering of the seller compensating you, rather than the buyer compensating you, you would need to put that in 17B. Okay. It's taking its time to load up.
Sorry, guys, it's taking it's gonna take its time because of Zoom.
Yeah, but we had one, Candace. It was so sad. She didn't get paid. So we're still trying to figure out how we invoice for just, you know, the client's like, once they got the deal, they're excited, you know. The one goof up is going to cost this agent probably about $6,000. It's a big deal. And it's just because she didn't fill out the form right. It was like, oh no.
Cause yeah, One True Mutual, yeah, that portion is. Okay, so here we have. I'm just gonna get to the form. Okay, so I've gone through the wizard and I'm getting to my Form 21. There we are. Okay, so we have it here. Line number 17, buyer brokerage compensation, 2.5%.
That autofilled because,
Seller's offer, if any.
yep, and that's
Go
only
ahead.
autofilling because of Northwest MLS. Northwest MLS decided not to be part of the settlement, and therefore they currently are putting and publishing what the sellers, and the seller could publish nothing. They could, in fact, one of our brokers came into the office and said, there's like 12 listings that don't have anything published as far as a buyer brokerage compensation. That's the seller's choice on whether they publish or not publish anything. But if they did publish something, that's what's auto-filled in that 17A, the 2.5 in this particular case. But we're discussing, Candace and I are, we have a buyer service agreement for 3. Correct, Candace? So is that what we're going to put in?
Yes, I do. Yes, absolutely. Because that is the amount I'm requesting to be paid by the seller, is at 3%. This is a negotiation piece. This is what I'm asking the seller to pay me. This is where my compensation will come from. If I have nothing here, nothing is in here, I'm not getting paid anything. This is just the seller's offer, if any. This is amount to be paid by seller.
So I'm going to pick on the situation, Candace. So I had another agent say, well, the 2.5 is right there. It's published on the MLS. But then in B, I left it blank. And then I just sent a Form 40 over to escrow and told them I need to get paid 2.5. Will that work? And the answer is no. The purchase and sale agreement, they revised the purchase and sale agreement to be very clear about 17B. And it summarizes that section in the contract, and I believe it's like the last page of the Form 21 or 28, that describes how compensation is earned and how it's negotiated. I think if you want to go to the last page, it's that compensation paragraph that was amended. Yeah, keep going down.
Not here.
No, it's probably the second to the last page.
Here.
Yes, there we go. Section U. Seller and buyer
U.
shall pay compensation in accordance. This is all because of the law.
Here we go.
Yep.
Okay. 17B. Seller shall pay the buyer brokerage firm compensation set forth in specific term number 17B. That's right there, guys.
So if there's 0,
17B.
yeah, line 207. If it's 0, then we're getting paid 0. Best Choice Realty gets nothing. That's not what we're looking to do here with all the work you guys are doing out there. So don't make that blunder. And it also talks about the funds and the closing agent. It says, and irrevocably have the closing agent. So that's where escrow is involved. They are looking at the purchase and sale agreement. They're not looking, the Form 40 is just a communication. It's document. The Form 40 is not part of the purchase and sale. The purchase and sale agreement is what escrow looks at, and they will be looking at this purchase and sale in order to determine how to balance out, put it on the buy side or the sell side. So they're looking at that first page of the purchase and sale agreement. It makes it a lot easier for escrow than the way we used to have it. Let's go in the instance where, Candace, we were just wanting to do 2.5 and then ask for the credit. When would we use that option?
Well, it would be in the case that this was.
Yeah, so that would be right.
Okay. So in the case that I've gone with just 2.5%, or maybe let's say, actually, let's go with
No, let's keep the 2.5 and let's put 2.5 right there, but we're gonna
Yeah, that's
include the
2.5.
addendum.
Okay,
Yeah, let's keep with that. That's
two
this
and
is
a half.
the scenario. And then let's go 2.5
Okay, so
amount to be paid by the seller. So that would be 2.5 paid to Candace. And then we're gonna do a 0.5% addendum for the buyer credit. So we're gonna check the box and include a 41C. That's correct. You got it.
is that how that goes, Rochelle? I think it's a little bit different. If so, the buyer credit, that would be if my buyer brokerage agreement form was less than what the seller's offering,
Correct. So then we
right?
would,
So
yeah,
if my agreement, and we have this specific one, actually, I just talked to her last week. Specifically, she has her sign for 1.5%. And the goal is that that difference, if it's 2.5, if it's 1, or maybe they're offering a 3, that difference does go to the
buyer.
buyer. Okay, and that's where we would use the addendum for buyer credit. So it would look like this. So if I have mine signed for 1.5%, but the seller is actually offering 2.5%, this is how I would complete this. Then I need to grab my form. Let's see here.
41C.
Oops. My 41C. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, keep the comments flowing too. If there's
Mhm.
questions, we'll get to them in a minute. So keep that flowing, that discussion thread.
Right, and so I need to then check credit to buyer. And there's also a default here as well. But basically, it states the difference between the amount of seller's offer for buyer brokerage firm compensation and the amount to be paid by seller shall be credited to the buyer's obligations at closing. Okay, so that difference, that 1%, in some cases it might be 1.5, maybe it might be 2. That would go to the buyer, and this is how you use the Form 41C. The other checkbox here is any amount not approved by buyer's lender shall be applied as a reduction in purchase price or credited to the seller if neither box is selected. So I would not go with the default. I would default here as a reduction in purchase price. That's going to benefit your buyer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see
Let's
here.
go back. So we're getting creative now, Candace. This is where we're getting creative.
We're getting creative. Yes, we're getting creative.
At any point in time, you're like, I don't understand, or I can't remember what we learned about, a couple weeks ago, and you're in the moment. Sometimes it's better to ask me, Candace, Shannon, another managing broker, how to properly fill this out so that you're maximizing your credit to your buyer or you're negotiating in the right way. This may not be a good play if you're in a multiple offer situation, Candace. I mean, there's that discussion too. It's like you may want to.
That's very, very true.
You may want to consider some of your strategy around how you structure your offer. If you're up against, say, another broker that's going to have more funds than your client, or may be able to pay their agent, and not pay, have the seller pay you. So there's some strategy around whether you ask the seller to compensate you or to let that seller keep that money if you're in a multiple offer. So you really have to understand 17 and 18 and the sections that we highlighted today on the purchase and sale. So you would be what I would read. Definitely reread it again, section U, and then make sure that you're always filling out 17B. Never leave that blank. And if it helps you to put 0,
and I would say
that's fine.
0, right? So, and I would say too, there could be a circumstance, and I would think that this might be the most common, because I've had a lot of agents saying, well, I've noticed the average is about 2.5, so I'm only having them sign it for 2.5%, the buyer brokerage service agreement. Fine, whatever you decide, right? 2.5. But in the case that the seller is actually offering 3, again, this amount is the 2.5%. That's what you have on your buyer brokerage service agreement. So that is the amount that you need to put there. It can't be 3%. Okay. If your agreement is 2.5, it does need to be 2.5 here. The other option you have, though, maybe it doesn't want to go, you don't want to do that as a addendum for buyer credit, and that's okay as well. Does not have to be an addendum for buyer credit on the 41C here. What you would be doing, this is, say you have 2.5% on your buyer brokerage service agreement, they're actually offering 3%, you're basically defaulting that back to the seller.
Yep, so you have to understand the 41C in that case, where you understand what box you check and make sure it's going to the appropriate people. Okay, I think we're good. Let's go back to the buyer agency agreement, Candace.
Okay, here we are. I think, to be honest, those were the main points that we wanted to highlight.
The rest of
As
the
the changes.
Yeah, so all of
Right.
these pages have not changed. It's the same agreement. There's some slight adjustments to the VA financing because VA, they may require the buyer's fee be paid by the seller, but it's not always the case. It depends on the circumstance. So again, that got modified. So we don't have that strain that we used to have with the VA. They've evened the playing field for that, which is awesome. And then we have in section 11, these are some additions that we did as a firm, 11, 12, 13, those are additions that we included. We recommend that, buyers get an inspection. I'm currently dealing with a complaint right now where the buyer is saying, well, we didn't require an inspection. And so, yes, we do. We have it in our document, thank goodness. And then on number 12, it is the law to use a 41D. Instead of using a 41D, we use our 41D essentially as in our own document on term 12. If you do not fill this in, then you need to do a 41D. So some people have asked me, well, what if I don't fill this in? Well, we're obligated by Washington state law. If we're referring a home inspector, this changed in 2007. I remember the year it changed. You must disclose the nature of the relationship with your buyer. So we just made it easy so you don't have a separate addendum. And we will have it defaulted with 3 of really good inspectors that we use pretty consistently. But if you have an inspector that you tend to go to, then make sure you fill in their name right there in the document so that you are, in essence, practicing real estate under the correct law. And that's an RCW code. That's not something that you want to mess around with. I have been to court on the 41D. So that's not a fun place to be if you have not disclosed. And this is a great place to have it right in the buyer broker service agreement. So number 12 is about the inspector referrals. Number 13 is about, some of you do have mortgage licenses. We have quite a few, and they're awesome lenders that are on this call. I can see a few of you that are lenders as well. In that case, we have a relationship with currently Paramount Residential Mortgage Group, where Best Choice Realty has a relationship with that company. And then the second line would be none. You could essentially give your client 2 referrals on number 13 of mortgage, where we have a relationship, just like in number 12, where we have a relationship with the inspector, we also have a relationship with mortgages. And then in 13A, if you are an originator, if you are licensed to do loans, that's when you would check the box. If you are not, you leave that box unchecked and just leave the 13 as it is. So if you didn't fill anything in, you're totally fine on 13. But if you tend to refer XYZ mortgage, be sure that you're having them disclosed, that we have a relationship. That's the one thing I never want to go to court on is, well, Rochelle said I should use this lending company, and then all of a sudden its lender, it kind of explains the nature of the relationship here, and understands that the brokerage firm is not licensed, or they are, to do loans. So I do like that we have 12 and 13 in our document. Keep going, Candace. The 14 is all about the attorney stuff, what happens with resolution, dispute. Even before all of these changes, We have had dispute resolution that I've done with attorneys. And we have been very successful with enforcing our buyer service agreement and getting paid by the buyers if for some reason things go sideways. We have engaged an attorney to handle enforcement, people stealing clients, that kind of thing. If you have a buyer service agreement in place, we do have a way of collecting on this by sending this to our attorney and having them try to make a resolution without going to court. But then we have attorney's fees that are involved. This talks about the attorney's fees, who's responsible for it. Number 16, keep going down. I think the last page is the disclosure receipt. 17 is all about disclosure receipt.
Right.
So we made it easier by having P1, P2,
Making
labeling it. So that was nice and again, the requirement is always to give the P1. The others would determine what type of property you're working with, but always, 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 even if you're doing commercial leases, there's it describes all of those types of sales in the P1 and the situations that the buyer needs to understand. So always, always, whether it's commercial leasings, commercial sales, residential purchase and sales, always use P1. That is a mandatory box that needs to be checked and that you've given. So I see a lot of people, Candace, and I know Jenny sees this when she gets documents that check this box, but they never gave the document. You need to still deliver the documents, the pamphlets. So just because you checked it doesn't mean you delivered it. Make sure you're delivering these documents.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it. That's it for the buyer brokerage service agreement. There was one section, and somebody had brought up that you may not have the seller offering any compensation. They have that option on the new 1A that they don't have to offer any compensation, or they want you to negotiate your compensation. So you very well may get one that has nothing there. For those of us that are in the Northwest MLS, I know that we did discuss that other areas, Spokane, they automatically don't have it, but you still, just because we're in the Northwest MLS does not mean that that seller has chosen the option to offer compensation or have you negotiate your compensation. There's different options on the 1A. We're not going to go into that deep today, but just know that you may very well have it where there's nothing's being offered, or it says, you know, 0, or even a dollar amount today. So you may get one that's there, and this need to be complete for you to get paid. So you might put 6 there. You might put 3, right? So just keep in mind, if you do have 6 here, your buyer's brokerage service agreement does need to have 6 as well.
Do you want to turn it over to Lisa and then we can spend some time? John, how much time do you have?
Actually, we have, if we can have Xiao kind of explain as she was going to in Mandarin
Okay.
with Yan why the importance of having the buyer brokerage service agreement and how she presents that to her clients.
So we're gonna pretend.
And then
yeah, Yen, you're gonna be the client, okay? And Xiao is gonna be your agent. And if you can have a dialogue in Mandarin with Xiao about the buyer brokerage service agreement. And while you're doing that, maybe go to the second page, Candace, so that they have something to talk to.
Right.
If you don't speak Mandarin like me, this would be a chance where just go ahead and read the document in English, and so you understand it. But let's go ahead, right? Term 6, Xiao, explain to Yen how you are paid, how you've been able to successfully get this done with your clients.
You mean the compensation part, the
Yes.
seller's compensation offer?
Right. Do your
严
pitch.
你好啊哈，我是你，你可以通过我，我可以帮你找到房子，但是现在市场上呢，有些房子是卖家可能会给买家的经纪人经纪费，有些卖家可能不会给。那我和你呢，就最好透明一点，我们出去看房子以前，先把这表格先把话讲在前面，就说如果他们那边不给的话，我们填这个表呢，填在这个上面呢。就表示说，你授权让我去跟卖家讨价还价，为我的劳动得到的成果，我要我的时间，我的时间，我会有些报酬。所以这个过程就是说，其实现在大部分房子还是很多是卖家会给的，并且呢，我的责任，我的义务，其实也就是为你去一种谈判的过程。但是我们必须要签这个表格，我才会有资格这样去给你做。你明白吗？你有什么问题？I'm asking Yan. I explain briefly. Ask Yan if she has any questions. If she comprehend, 问一些。
Let's
哎，严，你在哪
Jen
里？
and Mona, can
Sorry,
you
I was
unmute?
muted.
There you go.
嗯
Go ahead.
就是如果说我要是想给你3%，你能够直接从卖家拿到吗？还是说需要我跟他们谈呢？
是我作为经纪人，我跟他们谈填这个表的话呢，就说你就授权，你就允许我这样做了。
从我这方面我能够帮你做到什么呢？如果有什么法律上就是能够跟他们协调，把这个你的费用能够拿到呢？
这个你作为买家，你啥都不用做，这是我的工作。这是就是说，咱们就先把话讲在前面透明一点。很多房子其实是卖家给钱的，他们给买家经纪人的费用，他们会给。但现在也有房子卖家他不给，他不给的话，我就说你就授权我去跟他们有个合约，我就去跟他们谈判，就为我的利益争取。作为一个经纪人为你服务呢，其实最重要是为你找个合适的房子。如果我没有这样的话，通常比如说呢，就会避免去找这个卖家。如果卖家不给我钱，我就不会向你推荐了。那说不定这些房子还是好房子，很适合你的要求，能够满足你的需要。为你找了个房子，物有所值，找个，并且努力去讨价还价，能够买到房子才是最重要的。这是我作为一个经纪人是一个能力的体现。就说我从这个角度上的话呢，我去做这个的话呢，大家付出劳动都是要得到报偿的，也是为了满足你的需要，也满足我的需要。
我明白。现在就有些问题，比如说卖家说要给你2%，但是我这边说是3%，这是一个问题。还有就是，假如说卖家说给你1%，我这边说不，卖家给你3%，我这儿是2%，就是相反的。那么这种情况怎么解决呢？这两种情况。
那我会去在卖家那边，我们如果看中房子，市场经济最重要是你买到合适的房子最重要。那我这边会跟卖家经纪人，我们去会谈判，会讨价还价。就说我不但要为你争取最大的利益，我也要就说要整个过程大家都是说我的劳动也被到肯定和承认。
那就是说，比如说卖家同意是给3%，我这边是2%，那么就是1%是减少我房屋购买的费用，是这样吗？
如果你想只给我2%的话，咱们这个要讨论一下，你自己算一下数的话，这个房子多少钱？你拿了2%的话，公司再扣了钱的话，我付出这么多劳动的话，就说咱们要讨论一下什么这个报酬是合理的。如果说2%你房价才60万啊，我到手都没钱了，金钱是最大的动力，没有动力了。我当然是，其实最重要是为你找到合适的房子。我自己的，如果我都不能有这种谈判的能力，保护我自己的权益，你能相信我在跟卖家和卖家经纪人 讨价还价的过程中保证你最大的权益吗？那个时候讨价还了几万的这样上下针，讲来讲去，并且还说很多条款都是很重要的，就说一分钱一分货，这是市场经济。
嗯，很好，那如果说卖家说给1%，那我这边同意给3%，那么，你能拿到3%吗？能否？或者我能帮你什么呢？你拿到这个？
如果说卖家只愿意给1%，我和你这个合约上写的是3%，虽然说你要给2%，咱们就要看这个价钱，这是个整个一个成交，是个整个的过程，不是一个这一点点，就是说我的报酬是多少。同样，我们要看到我们在市场上现在是买家的市场还是卖家的市场，我们能不能拿到这个房子？你自己看法对这个房子如何？如果你真是确实很觉得这是我们找到你所需要的房子，我尽最大的努力在市场比较的上，用最好的方法、最合理的价钱、最好的 term、最好的条款把你买下来，这是最重要的。当然，我会尽最大的努力，也去争取我的报酬。每个房子都不同，但是说如果我们填这个表格，就是万一卖家给我3%的话，我值3%的价钱。
对，我现在明白了。Did we cover everything? Anything else need to cover?
And did you give her a hard time? Did you tell her that you needed a rebate?
Basically, as
A lot of
two situation like if buyer, but if seller offer let's say 1% and buyer 3%, the difference, and what do we do? And another one is the opposite way. If a buyer offer 3%, no, seller 3% and buyer only give let's say 2%. There's a 1% difference, and so we'll reduce the purchase price, or how we handle that kind of situation, kind of opposite way.
Okay. Yeah, so Xiao, did you explain to her how you earned your fee?
Yes, I did explain. I said we need to work on this form and we want to do 3%. If the seller pays me less, if seller only pay me 1%, and I will we agree this is 3%, there's a 2% differences. I worth 2%. We need to negotiate. If I cannot negotiate with seller, that is, you got to look at the big picture. What's the house worth? Did you find the house you want? If there's many offers, and then I worth that money, and money is the motivation of working hard. I need to be competent, and so I can fight for the best of your interest.
That's great. Xiao did an awesome job. You're already getting some feedback from Shi. Thank you, Shi, for a great communication with the client. I don't speak the language, so I have to use Google Translate to on the recording to figure out what they said. But Yan, did you feel comfortable? Would you feel comfortable working with Xiao?
Yes, she did a great job. Yeah.
Great.
Great job.
And then the question that I get a lot from Mandarin speaking is the clients, Xiao, they want a rebate. They want to be able to negotiate for a rebate. How would you handle a rebate conversation? Or somebody says, well, can you give me part of your compensation?
I think every case is very different when you talk about it. It really depends on the market and depends on your individual relationship with your clients. If family member, that would be a little bit different. And for me, if you want to negotiate with me on your rebate and I gave in, how can you trust me to fight for the best interest of you when we negotiate best contract, best terms, best price for you? So I'm a soft ball. You can push me around, and then the seller's agent gonna push me around as well. And that time is not just a few $1,000, $10,000 deal. They're gonna push it $50,000. So that is at your loss. You're hiring me on my professionalism, hiring me on my experience, on my competency, not hiring me just to allow everybody being pushed around.
Good. I that translates even into English. I think I do the same thing in English.
Yeah.
But Candace, I've heard her deal with those objection handling. It doesn't matter what language you speak, you must have a way of dealing with that objection. If somebody says, Yen says, I want a rebate, Xiao is effectively able to deal with that. Candace, in her language, I know Vietnamese, Chinese, everything that we use, you have to be able to handle that in whatever language. Sometimes just saying no is the right answer of how to deal with that. If they do a rebate, then you would need to work with escrow and with the seller to make sure that proper disclosure is done, so that's on the closing statement correctly. And it has to be approved. If they're getting a lender, the lender must approve that rebate. And that only goes for Washington. In Oregon, no rebates are allowed. In Idaho, you can do rebates. In Washington, you can do rebates, but Oregon, they do not allow it. So it's interesting where we operate in all 3 states, the state law will determine whether that's allowable or not. And sometimes it makes sense to do it, other times it doesn't. And you just have to make sure you're properly filling out your forms. She said, how about if the seller keeps 1%, can we change the buyer compensation form? The answer is yes, you could amend the buyer service agreement. There is nothing wrong with you amending. And I really appreciate Tristan. Thank you so much for handling the questions on the chat. I really appreciate that.
It's been amazing. Yes.
And to answer the way Tristan answered your questions, it was no different than if I was to answer the questions. So he did a good job of answering those questions. Do you want to go to the next person, Candace? We were at 11:15.
Yes. So we have John, and we're just going to basically line item in Korean the important items to complete on the buyer broker service agreement.
Well,
And so
let's go to the
I
compensation.
have a suggestion. I have all day. I'm free. My kids are gone. My wife's at work, so I'm free. Why don't you like finish this for everyone instead of me doing my thing in the middle and people
Okay.
not
No, that
staring
sounds
at
great.
the screen and get lost. And I can do this at the very end and just summarize it in
Sounds
Korean.
good. That sounds great. And then we could
oh,
clip it.
wonderful. Okay,
So then we go to Lisa.
perfect. Yes, Lisa. And I know there was a few items on the 41C. Lisa, thanks so much for hanging with us.
No problem, and thank you for having us. I wanted to introduce Yan Lee, and we had to have one closer had to jump off for a closing, thank goodness. But I would love to have Yan Lee introduce both Junlu and Naye for you guys, so you know that you've got fluent speaker closers at Chicago Title. And then I'll jump really quickly into your questions for escrow.
Great.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry, June Lu and both June and Naya has to jump out because they have a closing. And I want to say that they are one of the best closers in our office, in our operation, and they are really build up their reputation on handling transactions with precision and efficiency. And they are straightforward, good at communication, and dedicate to client satisfaction and detail orientated. And they're just good. I don't know how much good words I can say, but the difference is, Naye, they speak a different second language. Naye speak Korean and June speak Chinese. And they both can handle all kinds of transactions. They just totally up to, what kind of your client or yourself prefer. And if you want more information from me, you can chat with me, or you can trust to put on your files on their desk, either one. So, just give us a try. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Yan Lee.
Thank you, Yan Lee.
And Yan Lee is absolutely phenomenal with clients who need to understand title and escrow. And she is also, her second language is Chinese as well. So we definitely have you covered. You guys might have a couple different questions for me. I want to be valuable of your time. I can send you a video on Chicago Agent. What questions might you have on escrow?
I want to know what the biggest mistake that you're seeing on the escrow side. What makes the escrow closer frustrated, Lisa?
Oh, great. Well, the biggest frustration that we're having right now is when the purchase and sale form 21 is not matching the commission disbursement, or you're not filling out the purchase and sale, but you're sending us You're not sending that section, but you're sending us your buyer's compensation agreement. And remember, the buyer's compensation agreement is not a piece of escrow because the seller hasn't mutually agreed to that. So we cannot get in the compensation discussion. You're welcome to send it if for clarity, but my biggest thing is if you are doing something that is not what we're used to seeing, contact your closing team, see what they need. Have them create your settlement statements at time of mutual, so everybody knows this is what the compensation is, so that you can get that amended as quickly as possible. We're seeing it a couple days later, or the lender doesn't realize there's going to be a buyer credit from the difference in commission, because we've still got a lot of listings that are on the old listing commission. So for example, somebody said, I was willing to pay 2%. Buyer's compensation is now 1.5. So then they forget about the credit and then they go, oh, wait, I needed the buyer to get that credit. We've just slowed escrow down because they've got to do a new disclosure for the lender. So really look at those buyer's credits and partner with that lender, I think is the biggest thing.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think especially when you're dealing with off market or sellers unrepresented, I called Lisa up, I think, what was it, just a few days ago, and said, can you get me a net sheet? Because the buyer that's unrepresented is coming into the office and they want to see the fees broken down and how they're paying. Involve escrow more for that if you don't have the app. The app that they have at Chicago is one of the best out there. So the app will calculate things for you, but if you're just wanting to have more of an official looking statement, that's where I would contact your closer and just say, can you just run me here's the compensation, who's paying what, and they can spit that out pretty quickly for you on their official looking net sheet type thing.
Yeah, really happy to do it. And I will send a video to everybody who's been on, because they did change the calculator on Chicago Agent that shows buyer's compensation in the buyer's screen if you're calculating for buyers, seller's compensation on the seller's screen, and buyer's compensation on the seller's screen. You can split them. It's very simple, but for time's sake, I'll send you a video.
Okay.
Anything else?
Other questions you guys might have for escrow or issues you're running into?
I wonder about 41A has the MLS form, and then best choice form, two different. So why don't I use the MLS form? Is just a one piece of paper, way simple. Then do I have to use the best choice form? Did you hear?
I get bits and pieces. Candace, did you hear her?
Yes, she's saying the MLS form that's out there is simpler. Why does she have to use the Best Choice Realty form? I think, Rochelle, you're best at responding to that.
You can use either one. I would encourage you to use the buyer service agreement that's by the firm. The reason you would choose to use the buyer service agreement that the firm has produced is because it's produced by our attorneys. So if you ever had a dispute or a claim or an issue, it's a lot harder to use a form that the law firm, Northwest MLS, they had their own attorneys draft their agreement. If you have a complaint or dispute, it'd be better to use ours. So that's number one reason you would use ours over the other. Also for interest of disclosures, for receipts, for inspection. We went over some of the reasons why you would want to use it. We have more protection for all of the aspects of real estate work that you're going to be doing, rather than am I going to say no? If you got me the Northwest MLS form and it's all filled out correctly, am I going to say no, you can't get paid? No, of course not. You're going to get paid. But you've got to have one or the other. I would prefer the one that will have more protection for you and for the work that you do, rather than one that may not have everything included in it.
Okay, thanks to explaining. I understand now.
Yep. Great question. Other questions that came up in the chat? Do we have to submit? Oh, great question, Please do not submit the BCR. You don't send the buyer agency agreement in with your offer. No, 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 no. They don't need to see what your agreement is. That will also impede your negotiation. If they know that the buyer has agreed to pay you compensation separate, why would you want to send that with your purchase and sale agreement and let the seller know what arrangement you have between between you and the other party? So no, do not include the BCR 41 or the Northwest MLS buyer service agreement with your offer. Do not do that. I'm glad you asked the question. Thank you so much. Other questions you guys have?
I'm looking in the chat and I'm like, thank you, Tristan. Yes.
There was somebody who had a
Guy, if there's a buyer's credit that needs to show on the settlement statement, that needs to go to escrow. So, and it also needs to be pre-approved, as you know, by the lender. So yeah, if there's a buyer credit for 41C, send as much as you can to escrow, but give them a phone call.
Great. We get a few more questions. That's fine. What's recommended closing dates recently? What's your, how long, what's the length of the escrow, Lisa?
Great question. I will tell you right now, lenders are getting us loan docs later. Speaking to a lender, he said, you know, last year at this time I had 6 people working on files. I'm down to 2. So we are seeing that if you've got a loan, talk to your lender. We're seeing loan docs coming in the day that they're supposed to close. And so we're seeing a lot of 1 to 2 day extensions. So if I was doing 30, check with your lender. Because it's all about back-end processing right now. They are understaffed and they are ramping up in their refis.
And
Thank you for that.
sorry, I'll just make some add on some. If you have a cash offer, I mean, even you have a cash, you still need to check whether there is a HOA. You know, sometimes it take a while to get HOA demand. It really depends. So at least, even you have a cash offer, at least you should, I mean, have 10 days for closing. And if you need, you know, shorter than that, you need to check with the closer to see what we can do.
Yep, great, good point, Yanli. Yeah, 10
Fantastic.
days for cash with clear title issues too. We've seen that as well. You know, some people are like, oh, I can close. I've got cash. It's right. It's in my Bank of America bank account, but we haven't even been able to clear the title. There's a few things that have to be cleared up. So make sure you've done your preliminary title report and you've talked to your closer to make sure that's possible. You can close quicker with cash, but only certain circumstances. Okay, Candace, anything else?
I think, yes, to reiterate, if my agreement says 2.5% and the selling office commission is 3%, does that difference need to be on a 41C? Yes, it does. And that would go to the buyer. That is the one change that we cannot take the difference. So it would be a credit to buyer for closing costs or a reduction in purchase price with the 41C.
Disclosures.
Is it a good idea to?
Yeah, to include the disclosures that we find. If you want to put my business practice is either I have all the disclosures on my computer and I send those in an email separate, or if you're going to put it all into Transaction Desk, right now we have to do a lot of data entry into Transaction Desk. You can put all of them and attach them at the back. So I've seen both of those types of options, or you go and give them to them physically, and that's your business practice. When you meet with them, you give them a buyer package that has all those disclosures, and then you are completely fine, if that's your business practice, to check the boxes on the agreement saying that I physically gave all of them. And that's your business practice, and that will hold up in court as well.
I think though too, I personally, I don't know that, you know, that's a great practice to send all of your disclosures with your offer. You might frustrate a listing agent having to cut those items out of the offer because they're not part of the offer.
No, that's correct. Thanks for clarifying. Is the buyer credit the same as the rebate? Yes. So it's no different. Buyer credit, rebate, same deal. Xiaoming, great question. Okay. I think I got through the questions in the chat. If not, unmute your line or go ahead and put it in the chat. I think Grover, you had a question, your hand raised at one time. Hopefully you got your question answered. *6 to unmute or just click the button.
Yes.
I got it answered.
Awesome, great. Okay,
Any other questions?
anything else, Candace?
Wonderful.
We can let everybody go and then
I
John,
think
we can have John Kim just stay on and we'll, if you speak Korean, we'll just have a dialogue in English and Korean. We have quite a few. We have about 22%, I think, when I looked last, that speak Korean as well as English. And we are having some difficulty in understanding and translating some of the documents. So if you want to stay on, if you speak Korean, John Kim, Candace, and I will stay on to record that section. If not, Candace, is there anything else we need to cover? We'll let everybody
there
else.
was one last question. One more question here. Commission disbursement will be filled out differently now per escrow if there's a buyer credit. Form 40 will no longer show agent credit since credit is now being offered by the seller
That's correct.
via purchase and sell and not via agent credit.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there
And the escrow
Correct
companies are
there.
still, not all escrow companies are enforcing this. They're again trying to be
flexible?
not to create additional stress for all of us. But yes, that's essentially what you will start to see. Escrow companies will get on board with that. So your Form 40s may look very different than they have in the past. You're going to need to make sure that the commission is part of the purchase and sale agreement, or your compensation is agreed upon by buyer.
Right. And last question, is there a portion that goes to Best Choice when collecting for the retainer or per hour fee?
One more time, Candace.
Is there a portion that goes to Best Choice Realty
good-
when
good
collecting for
question.
the
Retainers,
Yeah.
And consultations and the per hour per day, we take 10%. It's per your brokerage agreement, 10% of the total gross. So if it was $100 showing fee, if $10 goes to Best Choice, $90 goes to you. So it's 10% of the not to exceed $595. That's what our brokerage agreement says. So if you have $1,000, you're gonna have 10% of that go to Best Choice Realty. And I can assure you, it's going to a good cause. Yen and Monin, our accounting team, they have a lot of work they have to do invoicing and making sure that everything is done appropriately. So there is a fee that is owed to the company for managing that for you. You will appreciate them the more we go down this. We are having more of those come across our desks. Abby, question, go ahead, unmute your line.
Rochelle, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped on really late, so I'm not sure exactly all you guys were talking about, but one question I have is on the buyer service agreement. When you fill out the 3% that the buyer is going to pay in case of the seller not offering it, what if it turns out that the seller does offer 2.5? Is there anything else that happens to that 0.5%?
Yes, that 0.5% goes back to the buyer or the seller in the form of a rebate. You cannot collect the difference.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If it can be credited to the buyer.
You would use a 41C in that case, and we did talk about this earlier.
Okay.
And this has been recorded.
Okay. So if the seller is offering it, that I'm just confused about this
If the
in
seller
general.
offers, in the example you gave, if the seller offers 3 and your buyer service agreement is 2.5, and you are wanting to make sure that your client gets that 3%, that additional 0.5%, you would have to negotiate that on your contract.
No, I mean, if the buyer puts in that they're willing to offer 3%, because you know how you said that we're supposed to always have 3% written in, because if you don't, then you don't get that other
I
half
didn't say that.
percentage.
I didn't say to always have 3% written in. I said that you need to have something written in, and it is negotiable.
I was always thinking that it's best practice to have 3%, because if they do offer 3% and you only have 2.5, then you'll have to go back and negotiate it. So that's always what I was thinking.
Right, right. And you do want to have it as 3% in so that you can negotiate, right? So you can negotiate. And so what you're saying is that if they're offering 2.5 and you have 3%, that on your agreement, yes, you can negotiate that with the seller.
No, Candace,
They don't
sorry.
have to offer it to you, but that
What-
can be negotiated.
I don't
Okay,
know
yeah,
if
that's what I was wondering.
She's
Tristan, go
saying the
ahead.
Yes.
opposite.
Oh, she's saying if she has 3% on her buyer brokerage service agreement and the seller's offering 2.5%, can she request 3%, right? Or no?
Yeah, I think so. Because she's talking about filling it out at 3%. Anyway, so that in the case that the sellers, if the seller's offering, no, we're talking about the opposite. If her buyer's agreement says 2.5 and the seller's offering 3, we used to be able to keep the difference, but now we can't. So it's recommended to put 3% on the buyer's agreement as well, so that if there's ever a difference, then you don't have to worry about not getting it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Correct.
so that's
Correct.
why I would
Yeah.
fill out
Yes.
3% on that.
Yeah, and then you would want to use a 41C to essentially disclose to the parties how that 0.5% is being applied. Okay?
Okay. So if you have 3% on your buyers and then there's 2.5 that the seller's offering, there may be cases where that 0.5 goes nowhere, right? It's just, okay,
That's correct.
okay.
It's all negotiable, so that's part of your offer, right?
Got it.
Okay, and then we've got one last question, Abby.
Yes, I think it was on the purchase and sale agreement on item number 13, where it talked about new section where the mortgage lender is the one having a relationship with a buyer broker firm. So if I'm using a lender that is not one that has a buyer broker firm relationship, but one that I have a relationship as an agent, can I fill it in, or is that
Yes.
or is that area just meant for relationships with the agency?
No, Abby, I would go ahead and we included that to give some additional protection. So yes, go ahead and put that in that second field.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so I think we want to go ahead and have John recap in Korean. Thank you so much today. Kind of the overall main points that should be mentioned.
Why are people still on the meeting?
Because they want to know what John Kim thinks about the buyer agency agreement. Yes, and we do, if you do speak Korean, stay on. I think that's a good thing, John. We need to be able to have an open conversation.
Yeah. So you want me to
About-
recap
Yeah.
what we just spoke for the last hour and 40 minutes?
Yeah, for the next 20 minutes.
Well, recap it there. It's like the shortened version, John, the shortened version, the important points on the agreement, and then the Form 21 and the 41C. So on the buyer brokerage agreement,
Yeah, why don't we?
Yeah.
Why don't
Do you
we
want
let-
me to?
but
Yeah,
Mia
let's do that. I
Lee-
mean, I know there's only 1 or 2 people that speak Korean in this meeting currently, so this is mostly for the recording purpose, I assume.
Yes,
Let's get on to it right now. Let's open up. Which form should we start with?
let's start with the
40.
buyer service agreement. So the areas that you find that people find difficulty with. So let's pull up our buyer service agreement. And then thank you, John, for explaining how we deal with the new buyer service agreement. We are seeing some changes of how our agreement reads. And what I'm seeing, John, is that there are a lot of people not understanding what they're filling out. So the first question I would say for you would be, how do you fill out the compensation. So this first page, no problem. People know how to fill this part out. We already had you do the Korean section on the term. Let's talk about the services. So if you were to sit down with me and explain, what do you do to earn compensation in the state of Washington? Can you explain that to me? What do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah. So as a buyer's agent, what do you do that makes you different from other buyer's agents?
I just sneak this form into an email and have them sign it without knowing. I'm just kidding. So
Okay.
well, I just basically explain what I will do for them, and in order for me to do my job in full, I explain what this form is about and explain how I get paid. And I know a lot of people that already had experience in buying and purchasing or selling home didn't require this form in the past. And a lot of them is new for them. So I kind of explain what has changed recently and therefore why we need this form to be signed and why the numbers should be specific in the forms in order for us to have minimum
Okay,
error.
super.
Yeah.
So say that in Korean. So if I was a Korean client, so Myung Lee, she's Lydia, she speaks Korean. John, tell Myung Lee how you earn compensation.
안녕하세요. 들리세요?
네,
어,
안녕하세요.
아,
So I'm
네네.
gonna speak in Korean and I'm gonna say hi to everyone.
Okay.
안녕하세요.
네.
아시겠지만 제가 이거를 뭐 잘해서 제가 지금 대표로 이렇게 하는 게 아니라 지금 제가 시간이 공교롭게도 많아서 제가 이게 자원해서 이렇게 하는 건데 지금 이 폼 41 로 지금 많은 그 실수들을 많이 하고 있는 것 같은데요.
베스트
지금
초이스 폼이요?
네,
MLS 폼이요? 아니면 베스트 초이스 폼이요?
best choice form이요.
네네.
So by the way, so what I'm doing right now is I'm just went right at it, and I'm gonna explain what the compensation section is
Great.
and what needs to be done.
Perfect.
Instead of doing like a dialogue thing, I'll just want to get
Get right to
through
it.
this. Yeah.
That's probably how your culture works, right? They want to just get to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Michelle,
Yes.
we've been discussed long times and long enough. I'd like to simple question to him. Mr. 김 선생님, 네, 이거 41C addendum for buyer credit.
41C요? 네.
네,
네.
41C. 이거 필이랍 할 적에 그냥 데이트, 바이어 네임, 그리고 셀러 네임, 그리고 그 프로퍼티 애드레스 쓰고요. 그러고 나서 그 밑에 체크박스 있잖아요. 크레딧 투 바이어.
네.
그러면 셀러가 모든 저기 커미션을 페이할 경우 그러면 여기에 마크를 맨 밑에 크레딧 투 셀러 이거에다 마크해야 되는 거죠?
지금 폼 41C는 언제 쓰는 거냐면요.
네.
우리가 지금 바이어 어그리먼트에 예를 들면은 우리가 바이어 어그리먼트에 2.5%를 이제 동의를 했고
네.
근데 셀러가 주는 커미션이 3%면은 0.5가 더 많잖아요.
네.
그 0.5%를 바이어가 쓸 수 있게 동의하는 그 폼입니다.
아, 그럴 때만 쓰는 거예요. 42C, 41C는 오케이, 감사합니다. 그리고
Her question was for form 41C for the credit what the form was for, and I explained it is for when the agreed the compensation is lower than what the sellers agreed to give, and that's when we use it. So now she understands.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, we're making
그러니까,
progress.
오케이.
Great, Lydia.
선생님, 그러면 그 41 A에서 예를 들어서 41C가 3%이 from the seller. 그런데 그러면 그 만일에 2.5가 리스팅이고 0.5가 셀링이잖아요. 그러면 만일에 듀얼일 경우는 이 3%를 그 에이전트가 다 accept가 되는 거죠?
그것도 지금 이 41 그 바이어드 어그리먼트 보면은 그
네.
듀얼 에이전시에 대한 그 내용이 있습니다.
네.
그거를 어떻게 기입을 했느냐에 따라서 또
네.
수가 달라집니다. 그래서 제가 지금부터 지금 그 컴pen세이션 제가 간단하게 요약을 해드릴게요.
네.
모든 분들을 위해서.
네.
Can we go to the compensation section?
It's the second page,
Yeah.
Candace. Yeah. Where it's,
This
I
one?
think she's
Yeah.
talking about dual agency.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
we
There
do
was
quite a bit of
this
dual agency,
right here.
with our Korean brokers, John. We actually see quite a few come through. You have great relationships, you know the buyer, you know the seller, you do
Yeah.
matchmaking, so it's good. Until it's not good, until it's a problem. So we have people not filling this out correctly. So you
예.
do have to fill it out.
네, 그 4번에 보면은 그 듀얼 에이전시에 관한 내용이 나오는데요. 여기에
SQ
바이어 이니셜을
네네.
꼭 받아야만
예,
우리가
여기에.
듀얼
네네.
에이전시를 사용할 수 있습니다.
알겠습니다. 그러면 그 41A MLS 폼에서 이 듀얼 에이전시 일적에 그러면 그 넘버 5의 컴pen세이션 있잖아요.
Okay,
네.
put in number 5,
number
Candace.
5 그러면 예를 들어서 for example my compensation is 5% from the seller totally come up and then the buyer doesn't pay any compensation, then I'm going to the market to the do I check the limited dual agents or just the which one do I market at the 41A to the MLS form?
She's talking about the 6E, limited dual agent, Candace. If buyer broker is a limited dual agent and represents both buyer and the seller, then the buyer's fee shall be, how much is the buyer paying? If it's 3, it's 3. If it's 4, it's 4. It depends on what you put in that
It
section.
depends,
yeah.
And it's negotiable.
Oh, no, but my point is the seller going to be paying full percentage from the compensation from seller. So actually buyer doesn't pay anything. Then at the number 5 compensation, this is the compensation for buyer brokerage form service and then amend from the compensation set.
So I'm thinking that it should you still want to have the 3% there, right? And if the seller is compensating, that's perfectly fine. That's going to be coming from the seller, but you still want to have the limited dual agent section with the 3% filled. You can take less. I believe.
Lydia, does that make
So
sense?
she's saying the seller's compensating. So she's got the dual agency. She wants to have the section E completed and with the default of the 3%.
That would be what I would keep all of the defaults. If you're not sure, default is the best way to go. But you have to make sure that they initial on page 1 that they are okay with the dual agency. And only then, I mean, if they're not okay with dual agency, then there's no need to fill anything in. The default would happen, and it doesn't matter. If they don't agree to dual agency, then you don't get paid as a dual agent or a limited dual agent.
So just then I don't have to put it in anything for the 41A to number 5, anything? 41A?
You don't use 41A at all. 41A is an amendment. to the
amendment.
Yeah, and 41A is
Okay.
amendment. That's a good question, Lydia. John, you might want to explain that. We do not use, Koreans are using the 41A rather than using the 41. They're using the amendment, not the actual buyer broker service agreement.
This is amendment.
이게
Okay, then 1 minute.
41A는 그 개정을 할 때 쓰는 거고요. 뭐를 고쳐야 될 때. 그래서 지금 그 폼을 쓰면 안 되고 그냥 41을 쓰면 됩니다.
Yeah, pull up, Candace, if you could, Northwest MLS 41A so they can see the amendment. So you have a BCR 41, you have Northwest MLS 41. Both of those forms are the buyer service agreement or buyer agency agreement that we're required to have. The BCR 40, there is not an amendment. There's only Northwest MLS 41A, and 41A is the amendment.
Amendment. Okay.
Oh, wait a
Got
minute.
it.
Yeah.
Then come back to 42C. Then the seller
Let's first put the 41A up. Just bear with me here.
Okay.
We are recording, Lydia, so I appreciate your patience. So this amendment, this agreement here, John, we're seeing some of the Korean brokers using this as their buyer service agreement.
Okay.
Not good. This is
Amendment to it.
amendment. So this is, we only use this if you are changing something on our BCR 41 or the Northwest MLS 41. This is not to be meant to stand alone. It's an amendment to. The very, very top, it says amendment to. And
I'll just explain what the word amendment
explain that.
means.
And tell them because they messed up with the numbers, John, because it used to be 41A. So
Yes, yeah.
it confused all the Korean brokers because they pulled up 41A and then they get it signed and then we're done. But it's not good. This is an amendment to, not.
Hey, Rachel, sorry. Xiao and I offered one. She used the 41A.
That was the old agreement. We have a
so
new agreement.
she
41.
used the last one. Is okay?
It depends. We'll look at that separately, Hongsha. Yeah.
Sorry, I just jumped in
okay.
because I don't understand. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, everyone needs to update their forms if they download it. So 폼이 올해 1월부터 다 개정이 되었어요. 그래서 오래된 폼을 쓰지 말고 새로 업데이트된 폼을 쓰시면 좋겠고요. 예전에는 그 41A가 그 바이어 어그리먼트였는데 이제는 그냥 41으로 됐고 41A는 amendment 폼이고 그 뜻은 원래 있던 어그리먼트를 뭐 수정하거나 개정할 때 필요한
오케이. 네네. 오케이. 그러면 one more last question. Go to the 42C.
Okay.
42C.
41C.
아니 42C.
42C.
Compensation disclosure.
That's multiple brokers, isn't it?
42C.
Oh, hold on. We'll get to it.
Should be 40.
41C.
42C.
42C is what we used. We used 42C when commercial CEBA, when the CEBA forms were not modified to include the changes from the settlement, Northwest MLS produced 42C. Now that the forms are, the commercials, the CEBA forms have been modified, we no longer need to do 42C. It's a redundancy. Can you say that in Korean, John? Because we have a lot of Korean brokers.
Yeah. 42C는 예전에 그 CEBA에서 그 거래를 하고 나중에 그 커미션을 받을 때 썼던 문서인데 이제 또 역시 개정되면서 이 문서는 더 이상 쓰질 않습니다.
그러면
You should use Form 40.
Yes,
for
and
compensation
the
disclosure.
CEBA form has the compensation disclosure in it.
그럼 시바로 들어가서 시바 폼 40를 쓰라는 거예요?
So go ahead and just put the CEBA form.
커머셜인가요?
네, 저는 주로 다 커머셜을 하거든요. 그리고 mostly 듀얼로 일을 해서
네.
그리고 내가
커미션을 주로 다 셀러한테 다 받거든요. 나의 트랜잭션의 90%이 그렇거든요.
Where do
커머셜이면 C바에 있는 문서를 쓰면 됩니다.
시바 무슨 폼이에요? 잠깐만요.
Is there a form in Cba for the compensation?
There is, yeah, they included the compensation, that same section on 42C. They put that same language in the commercial purchase and sale. So it is
Okay.
now embedded. It is not, it's a redundancy, meaning it's
Okay.
duplication.
Let's see that.
그
not
C바의 그 purchase and sale agreement 문서에
네.
이 원래 예전에 쓰던
내용이.
42C 내용이 들어가 있다고 합니다.
네, 그래서 그냥 거기에다만 필리랍을 하면 돼요.
네.
거기다만. 아,
네.
그러면 그냥 PSA에다만 마크를 하고 따로 굳이 할 필요가 없다는 얘기인 거잖아요.
네, 그렇게 저는 이해를 했습니다.
그래요.
Candace is going to pull it up, Lydia, for you so you can see it, but it is embedded into the contract. They didn't
And
put
since
commercial.
she mostly do a commercial within Cba, I think it's a bit confusing for them to relate
Which one is
this
it?
form to their transactions.
Yeah, the commercial, they didn't put it on the first page. On the CEBA, but they put it into the contract. And it's not CEBA
Okay.
for you. It's coming up. You had it right there. Go commercial.
I did.
CEBA,
Okay. Where?
investment, commercial, investment real estate, CEBA PS1A,
PS1A here.
no.
Yeah,
Commercial
that one, real estate.
it's on that
Go
one.
ahead too.
Oh, no, it's down one more. Cancel that. It's two more down.
Oh,
There it is right there.
oops.
We might want to tell Hong
Not
Sia,
this one.
this is for the Korean speaking agents.
Yeah,
The Chinese language has ended, but it's all recorded, so you might be able to watch that later.
Oh,
I know
yes.
you are very confused listening right now.
okay. We'll get to you, Kongsha. I'll have
Which-
Candace reach out to you after too.
Okay, so you want me to
Which-
stay or you want me?
You're welcome to, but it's not going to be in Mandarin for you.
I know. I just have two questions there. That's why I'm waiting for. You know. Xiaoyu, we.
Can actually, Hansha, can we take this offline? This is being recorded for
Oh,
Korean
sorry. Okay.
speaking. So yes, I will call you after. How's
Okay.
that?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm leaving.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Just go to CEBA, Candace. Go
I'm
to
here, right?
yeah.
Oh, you mean to, which
CEBA
one is it now?
PSA. Commercial and investment real estate PSA.
Go to real estate. CEBA, this one, you know,
PS1A.
yeah, that one.
1A,
When you
this
click
one?
that.
Okay.
Okay, and just to
Go
let
to
me
the last
know, okay,
page.
I like to know for this one, not last page, first page, I want to find out to something. First page, page 1.
Mhm.
Okay, right there, for I am the dual agent, and then seller, and then buyer, then but the commission come from the seller. Then I have to mark there this one for 16.
So that 17 is no different than Northwest MLS. If the buyer brokerage firm compensation, in the case of a dual agency, how much is the seller paying the buyer broker?
To total is a 5%, for example. Then there is put it on the 5% or 2.5 or 2.5 there.
So that says
Right.
buyer brokerage firm compensation. In the example of say 5% total, the 2.5 would go there. And then you'll see later in the contract, it
Huh?
talks about it broken apart. How much the seller pays you and how much the buyer pays you.
The separate to put it on there. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and then
So it keeps going down. It's in the, I think the last to the page. Oh, yeah, keep going. It's agency, there it is, right there,
yeah,
47.
right there. Uh-huh.
Compensation offered to buyer brokerage firm by the seller. See
Yeah.
that section A
Yeah.
and B? That's the same as that 42 that you were asking us to look up before.
Okay.
So you don't need
So-
that other because it's the same.
Other form, yeah.
Yeah.
Just put it right down there only. Then okay, then for the 2.4 example, the 5%, then check the mark first one 2.5 and then B is 2.5 separate.
Candace, you want to explain this to her? And then John might have to
So
translate.
the compensation offered to buyer brokerage firm by seller for providing buyer brokerage service to buyer is related to the property is, and B, compensation from listing firm. The compensation offered to buyer brokerage firm by the listing firm for providing buyer brokerage service to the buyer, to buyer related to the property is. So this would be,
Okay.
right, 2.5 on each.
Mhm.
I think, wait, hold on. Compensation from seller. Well, actually,
No, one of them is 0.
you're
Remember,
looking at dual agent. Sorry, you're looking at dual agent, right?
Yes, it is. I think that's right.
It's very confusing.
I am
It's
confused
puzzle.
again now. We went
No,
over this before. I went over this with Lydia as well. And
Yeah.
so, hold on. So hold on. Let me see here. Buyer brokerage compensation
Number 47
disclosure.
is for the
Okay,
buyer broker. Number 48 is for the list, for representing the seller.
sorry. Yes. So you've got buyer brokerage firm. So this is compensation from seller. So if the seller is providing, this would be 2.5.
Mhm.
Let me see here. Buyer brokerage compensation. And your seller's offering 5. So the 2.5 would go there. And then seller agrees to pay listing firm compensation of
2.5 there.
right. Sorry. So
That way.
this is buyer brokerage compensation. This is listing compensation.
Okay. Then I'm sorry to make it sure again, so I don't have to fill it up to any other compensation or then the matter, just to put it in the PSA.
Correct.
Correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct. You just
And
need
the PSA.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
And you need the 40, the BCR 41, right?
correct. So you need our buyer service agreement, BCR 41.
Mm-hmm.
No need to do an amendment unless you're changing, like this, they change that they want to have you to be dual, then you will need amendment to change so you can be a dual agent or have them initial. The
When
dual
it's changed.
correct. You only use the amendment when you're making a change to the BCR 41.
Mm.
Once you get to this stage with the purchase and sale, you just have to make sure you fill in number 47 correctly and number 48 correctly.
Correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, before it used to be all put together, Lydia, and now it's separate apart. You just have to make sure you get the right numbers in there.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay. John, I think questions for you. We can have just
Now, can we start with 41?
go back to 41. Okay, Lydia, you're welcome to jump off if you'd like.
Go to compensation.
Okay. Oh, here we are. So
There we
there we go.
Okay. No, okay, let me start and I'm just gonna go
Can you
through
see
this in
that okay?
Korean and yeah, I'm good. Thank you. 네, 이제 그 많은 분들이 이제 조금 헷갈려 하는 부분을 지금 이제 제가 간단하게 설명을 드리고자 하는데요. 이 문서와 그리고 그 purchase and sale 그 메인 문서 있죠? 그 주택은 그 form 21 거기 이 두 문서를 작성을 잘 해야 저희가 제대로 이제 페이를 받을 수 있는데요. 제일 중요한 그 6번 41 문서 41의 6번 compensation을 보시면요. 이렇게 쭉 나눠져 있는데 우선 A는 이제 retainer fee라고 해서 약간 수수료 개념으로 이제 저희가 바이어들한테 차지할 수 있고 B는 변호사처럼 무슨 상담비 같은 거를 차지할 수 있고요. C는 이제 시간당으로 차지할 수 있고 그리고 제일 중요한 이제 D인데요. D는 이제 그 주택 매매가에 이제 몇 프로를 우리가 이제 받을 수 있냐를 이제 기입을 해야 되는데요. 가장 좋은 방법은 여기에 지금 디폴트로 만약에 빈 칸으로 남기면은 그냥 자동으로 3%가 되는데요. 3%라고 하는 게 제일 좋습니다. 그래야 나중에 이렇게 뭐 못 받는 그런 금액이 없도록 하기 위한 거고요. 그 부분을 바이어분들한테 좀 설명을 잘 해야 될 것 같아요. 왜냐하면 셀러가 만약에 뭐 3%를 주는데 여기에 만약에 뒤에 2.5%라고 쓰면은 저희는 2.5%밖에 커미션을 받지 못하고 대신 그 나머지 0.5%에 대한 금액은 바이어에게 크레딧으로 가거나 그 매매가에서 그 제하거나 할 수 있는 옵션이 생깁니다. 반대로 어, 셀러는 2.5를 주는데 여기에 우리가 3%를 썼을 때는 계약상 그 바이어가 저에게 0.5%에 대한 것을 지급을 하도록 되어 있는데 그건 추후에 바이어와 다시 내고를 할 수 있습니다. 그래서 바이어가 굳이 안 줘도 되게끔 뭐 이렇게 내고를 할 수 있고요. 아니면은 바이어분한테 계약이 여기 3%니까 3% 나머지 그 0.5%에 대한 금액을 달라고 할 수 있는 권한은 생깁니다. 그래서 D에다가 저는 그냥 빈 공간으로 놔두는 게 제일 좋고요. A, B, C, D 다 빈 공간으로 놔두는 게 좋고 E 역시 만약에 저희가 그 추후에 저희 그 듀얼 에이전시를 하게 될 경우 또 여기 나와 있는 그 퍼센티지에 그 나와 있는 대로 저희가 커미션을 받을 수 있기 때문에 이것 역시 빈 칸으로 놔두면은 이거는 이제 순전히 바이어 쪽에 대한 것만 고려한 거라 뒤에 나와 있는 3%를 이제 받을 수 있도록 하는 게 좋고요. 그래서 빈 공간 아니면 3%라고 쓰는 게 제일 좋습니다. 그리고 네, 여기는 이 정도 하고요. Can we go to the next section?
Go to the next page, Candace.
그 리디아 선생님 혹시 제가 지금 설명한 것 좀 이해가 되나요?
My
지금
apologies. Do we want to go over anything here?
alright, I think these are all basic information.
This is all the same. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is all the same.
예,
Um,
나머지 부분은 예전과 다 같고요. 그리고 12번에 I'm gonna explain the inspection part really quick.
Great.
예전에는
Okay.
그 주택 매매를 할 때 꼭 was it 40 form 42 or for the inspection?
it was a 40, it was before, it was a 41D.
41B or D?
D is in dad.
D is in
Okay.
Delta.
No, it's
Delta.
D is in
Okay.
dad. 41D.
예전에는 그 문서 form 41D 물론 지금도 이제 form 41D를 써야 되는데요. 거기에 이제 그 나중에 혹시 뭐를 무슨 뭐 인스펙션을 안 해서 생기는 그런 그 불이익 때문에 소송이 걸릴 수가 있는데요. 그런 것들을 방지하기 위해서 저희가 항상 그 인스펙션을 이제 추천한다는 그 내용을 담고 있는데요. 그 폼이 40일 뒤에 있습니다. 근데 지금 베스트 초이스 여기 폼 41에는 그것을 담아서 굳이 나중에 따로 40일 뒤를 쓰지 않도록 여기에 미리 포함을 시켜놔서 여기에 인스펙션 업체 세 군데를 쓰고 옆에다가 Nature of Relationship 옆에다가는 비즈니스라고 쓰시면 됩니다. 그리고 13번은 Mortgage Disclosure인데요. 혹시 이제 우리가 개인적으로 아는 그 융자 업체를 소개할 경우 혹시 모를 일에 대해서 거기다가 그 융자회사 이름을 써놓는 게 좋고요. 없으면 그냥 빈칸으로 놔둬도 됩니다. Alright, next. 그리고 혹시 그 에이전트이면서 몰기지도 같이 하시는 분들은 그 13번 A에 그 체크마크에 그 체크를 꼭 하셔야 되고요. I'm done with the 13. Are there any other?
잠깐만요.
And
아까 제
then just
목소리가 안 들려서 제가
네.
그 커미션 그 파트 있잖아요. 그 전 페이지.
She wants to go back to the compensation part.
Mhm.
거기에 아까 3%를 만일에 바이오가 5%를 주면은 여기다가 그냥 5%라고 쓰면 돼요.
바이어가 5%를 주는 경우가
아니
이거
셀러가 5%를 그러니까 2.5, 2.5 리스팅
아니
셀링
지금 좀 헷갈리셔 하는 것 같은데 이 폼 41은 바이어 에이전트에 관한 것만 쓰는 겁니다.
그래요?
셀러하고 상관없어. 셀러는
저는 이게 PSA인 줄
예,
알았네. 네.
예, 셀러 어그리먼트는 따로 있습니다. 네.
오케이.
Alright, we're good.
Okay, go to the end, the last page,
Awesome.
disclosures.
And then just the last page is the disclosures. 1, 2,
Okay.
3, and 6 required, and these are if necessary, the additionals.
Yeah,
And
and
there's that
P1
blank
is
one that you can.
Okay.
Yes.
체크 더
여기서
마크,
17번에는
네.
이제 그 바이어 손님한테 클라이언트에게 이제 디스클로저 하는 이제 문서들을 보내주고 보내드린 그 디스클로저 문서들을 체크마크 하면 되는데요. 필이 그 A에 있는 P1 Real Estate Brokerage in Washington pamphlet 그것은 꼭 체크마크를 하고
네.
실제로 이메일이든 프린트를 해서 주셔야 되고요. 만약에 78년도 이전에 지어진 집이면 P2 Lead Based Paint 그 팸플렛도 꼭 포함을 시켜야 됩니다.
네, 알겠습니다.
All right, well, I think we're good here. Can we go to the Form 21 first page?
Which is yes.
Here we go.
Okay.
I think this is the most important part today because I made the same mistake last month. Without I left that part B blank.
Okay.
Right.
Fortunately, the listing agent actually their manager caught that and asked us to fill it out. So that was good. But
good.
anyway, here we go. 네, 오늘 가장 중요한 부분일 수도 있는데요.
네.
이 부분을 미스하시면은 저희가 이제 커미션을 받지 못하는 경우가 생기고요. 이미 지금 그런 경우가 여럿이 생기고 있는 상황인데요. 17번 보시면은 17번 A에 seller's offer if any라고 써져 있는데 이 폼을 이제 그 MLS 이제 오퍼를 쓸 때 풀업 그 하시면은 자동으로 기입이 되는 경우가 많습니다. 안 됐으면은 매뉴얼로 이렇게 기입을 하셔야 되는데요. 여기 그 퍼센티지 마크랑 그 옆에 뭐 예를 들어 2.5%면 2.5, 뭐 3%면 3%라고 이제 꼭 적어야 되고요. 그리고 제일 중요한 그 오른쪽에 있는 B, amount to be paid by seller 이 부분이 빈 공간으로 되어 있는데 이 공간에 꼭 그 숫자를 기입을 해야 그거만큼 저희가 페이를 받을 수 있습니다.
네.
예를 들어서 지금은 2.5, 2.5라고 돼 있는데요. 예를 들면은 셀러가 3%를 주는데 3%로 준다고 했을 경우 그럼 A에는 17번에 A에는 3이라고 돼 있겠죠. 근데 buyer agreement에 혹시 저희가 3%가 아닌 2.5%로 동의를 했을 경우는 그럼 여기다가 2.5%라고 써야 되고 그 나머지 0.5%는 저희가 받지 못하지만 바이어에게 크레딧이나 그 매매가에서 제할 수 있는 그런 권한이 생기면서 엑스트라 어덴다 그러니까 어덴덤 41C, 41C 바이어 크레딧이라는 폼을 써서 거기에 그 0.5%를 어떻게 쓸 건지 체크마크를 두 군데 할 수 있는데요. 거기에 바이어에게 크레딧으로 주거나 purchase price에서 디덕션이 되는 옵션을 고를 수 있고 그 2.5 옆에 체크마크 할 수 있는데 거기 addendum for buyer credit이 있는데 거기 꼭 체크마크를 해야 됩니다. 그러면 에스크로에서 그 문서를 보고 이 에이전트는 2.5%가 가고 나머지 0.5%는 저희한테 간다라는 걸 알 수가 있을 겁니다. All right. So I'm just done explaining what if the seller seller offers 3% and we somehow agree 2.5 with the buyer and what happens. So I explained that we will need to include Form 41C for that 0.5% and check mark how they want to be used.
Great. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And
I was trying to pull
I
up
did
the
explain that
41C.
17B needs to fill out with some number in order to get paid.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't know how I can say it, John. I can say it in 5 different languages. If I could speak, I still think we'd have mistakes.
Yeah. And there'll still be a few, yes, but
Yeah.
this was good. I hope that everybody was able to receive. And I think, to be honest, you're right. This most important part. Let's make sure you get paid and have that completed. Yes.
One quick question. So I know that's one situation, but I think we went through this already. But if the seller's offer is 2.5, which is normal, and the buyer agreement was 3%, which is the default if we leave it blank. Do we need to put 3 on 17B, or can we just put 2.5 and
You need to
assume
put
that
the 3.
3?
Yeah, you want to put the 3 because they're not going to see your buyer's agency agreement, right? So this is negotiating right here by putting that.
So negotiate with the buyer.
So let's say, John, that I'm the listing agent. You write me an offer, right? I've published that we're willing to do 2.5. You send me an offer with 3. I go to the seller and say, well, they offered more than my asking price. I mean, there's a lot of factors, right, that determine whether I'm going to pay. I've offered 2.5, but maybe you didn't ask for closing costs. Maybe you didn't ask for, you had full price offer. You had great terms. The seller may just go ahead with it. And we have seen sellers do that. We've had sellers say they're willing to pay 0. And then the buyer's agent like you puts 3 in the 17B. And then once the seller signs this, they have agreed to pay 3%. Escrow will disperse that way as well.
Okay. What if we are in a multiple offer situation and we just want to put 2.5?
Then you put 2.5 and you either have to amend your listing agreement or your buyer agency agreement, or you have to get an addendum put together.
Okay.
I thought that, Rochelle, if we can forgo if we have 3%.
We cannot take the difference. That's the biggest thing. So he would just need to make sure that we don't go after the extra 0.5%.
But he's saying, okay, so we do have to amend, because I thought our agreement allows us to. So again, if the seller's offering 2.5, but my agreement says 3, I thought that we were okay to just do the 2.5% without an addendum.
Yeah, and now we can do that. That's fine.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, that's what I'm doing.
On the flip, though, you cannot. So if it's reversed, right, where our agreement is 2.5 and the seller's offering 3, we have
Yes, of
to,
course, yes.
we can't, yeah, right. But in this case, if I'm not mistaken, I think our agreement allows us to accept, you know, even if we have the 3% on the buyer's agency agreement, the buyer brokerage is offering 2.5, we can go with the 2.5.
We
Okay.
can,
Is that
or you could tell me, John,
okay?
no, I've earned my 0.5%, and the buyer will be paying that 0.5%. The
Okay,
seller
so
will be
if I
paying
do want that
2.5.
0.5% from the buyer, I will let you know. Okay.
You'll just let me know. If not, I'm not gonna go after it unless you tell
Okay.
me. Yeah,
All right. Let me
Right.
explain this in Korean. I think this is pretty important.
Okay.
아까 그 폼 41 바이어와 그 바이어 어그리먼트에 만약에 이제 그 3%를 이제 받도록 그 동의를 했을 경우 리스팅에서 셀러는 2.5%만 준다고 돼 있을 때 그냥 우리도 그냥 2.5%를 받고 싶으면 그냥 여기에 2.5%를 써도 되고요. 3%를 쓰게 되면은 그 셀러가 만약에 여기에 3%를 쓰고 5%를 보내게 되면은 그러면 이거는 셀러에게 그 3%를 달라는 의미가 되고요. 그것을 셀러가 또 동의를 할 수도 있고요. 아니면 그냥 다시 2.5%로 카운터를 올 수가 있고요. 근데 여기를 지금 중요한 그 내용은 여기에 비록 바이어 어그리먼트는 3%지만 여기에는 2.5%를 써도 된다고 합니다. 그리고 만약에 그 0.5%에 대한 그 나머지 부분을 바이어에서 꼭 받고 싶다고 하면은 그때는 이제 그 저희 매니저인 로시아한테 얘기를 하면은 바이어한테 받을 수 있도록 해준다고는 하는데요. 그거는 이제 그 바이어와 저희와의 그 내고가 따로 필요할 겁니다.
그러면 셀러가 5%라 그러면 여기에다가 그 2.5 대신 5%를 쓰면 되는 거예요?
그 5% 다시 말씀드리지만 셀러가 바이어 에이전트한테 5%를 준다고 하는 건가요?
아니 그러니까 듀얼일 경우를 전 물어보는 거예요.
아니요. 이거는 다시 말씀드리지만 그 17번은 바이어 에이전트에 관한 내용만 있습니다. 셀러는 아니고요. 네.
알겠습니다. 네네.
We're good.
Yeah,
good?
good. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Lydia, for your questions and helping.
Okay. Thank you. Explain to more than detail. Just appreciate them. Okay.
Yes, no problem. Have a great day, Lydia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. John, that was amazing. Good job. That helped.
I actually learned a lot from today, so it was all good. Thank you.
Good. And I think
Thank you, John. We appreciate you.
Yep.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right. And then Candace, you'll call Hangsha. We'll be good there.